Ray had not intended to enter the common room. After her rehabilitation session, her arms still felt heavy and her legs responded with that irritating slowness she had yet to master. Even the smallest movement required a level of focus she would never have imagined needing before. Alyssa gently pushed the wheelchair down the corridor.
We can go through the garden if you'd like some fresh air.
Ray gave a slight shake of her head. She needed to sit, not walk, not wrestle with her own body for another 20 minutes. Alyssa understood immediately. They turned into another hallway, and the door to the common room appeared a few meters ahead. An unexpected scent lingered in the air. Tea and something sweet. Alyssa paused at the threshold.
Ah, it's tea time.
The room bore no resemblance to a hospital space. Large windows opened onto the clinic gardens. The afternoon light slipped across pale wood paneling and thick carpets. At the center, several low tables had been arranged with almost ceremonial precision. Porcelain teapots, delicate cups, and trays of pastries that would not have looked out of place in one of Paris's finest palace hotels. Ray observed the scene in silence. She could almost forget where she was. A few patients were already seated in the armchairs. Some spoke in low voices, others flipped through magazines as if they were in a hotel lounge rather than a clinic. And at the center of it all, Madame Leclerc. She looked up, then she spotted Ray. Her face lit up instantly. She raised her hand and gave an exaggerated, theatrical wave.
At last, the missing lady returns.
Several heads turned. Madame Leclerc did not seem to mind in the slightest.
Alyssa, my dear, do bring her here. One does not let a lady drink her tea alone in a place like this.
Alyssa glanced at Ray, a quiet question in her eyes. Ray hesitated for a second, then gave a slight nod. The chair rolled gently toward the table. Madame Leclerc immediately pushed a tray of pastries toward her.
Do take a macaron before Madame Renaud devours them all.
She cast a conspiratorial glance toward a woman seated 2 armchairs away.
This woman claims to be here for burnout, but I assure you, her appetite is nothing short of scandalous.
The patient in question looked up from her magazine.
I can hear you perfectly well, Leclerc.
Excellent. That will save you the trouble of reading gossip magazines to find out what I think.
Ray looked at the macaron placed before her. There was something almost absurd about the scene. A clinic, with patients in recovery, and a tea time that felt like it belonged in a palace. Madame Leclerc poured tea into a cup and set it in front of Ray with impeccable seriousness.
You see, my dear, the only thing preventing this place from becoming a proper sanatorium is the art of pastry.
She settled more comfortably into her chair, and as if a dam had just given way, she began to speak.
You missed a most fascinating episode this morning.
Ray lifted her gaze slightly. Madame Leclerc leaned in as though she were about to reveal a state secret.
You see that man who meditates in the garden every morning?
Ray thought for a moment.
Yes.
An elegant man, always sitting perfectly straight near the cypress trees. Madame Leclerc lowered her voice.
He is not meditating at all.
She paused dramatically.
He is listening in on his wife's phone calls.
Ray blinked. Madame Leclerc continued, clearly delighted.
A very respectable industrialist with a family fortune, but his wife has developed the unfortunate habit of making her calls on the terrace to speak with her lawyer.
She raised an eyebrow.
A catastrophic divorce.
Despite herself, Ray felt a soft breath escape her. Almost a laugh. The sound was faint, but real. Madame Leclerc noticed immediately. She clapped her hands lightly.
Ah, I knew it.
She pointed at Ray, triumphant.
You see, Alyssa, she can laugh.
Alyssa smiled gently. Ray lowered her gaze to her cup. The warmth of the tea slowly spread through her hands. For a few moments, Madame Leclerc continued her stories. An heiress scandalized because her psychiatrist had never owned a yacht. A countess convinced her chef had tried to poison her with chocolate mousse. The common room suddenly felt more like a society salon than a medical ward. In the middle of the next story, Ray felt something brush against her mind, a fleeting sensation, like a faint current at the edge of her thoughts. She froze for a second, then it was gone. Ray refocused on Madame Leclerc's voice.
And I haven't even told you yet about the Countess and the pastry chef.
She sighed theatrically.
But one thing at a time, one scandal at a time.
Ray looked around the room, the patients, the cups, and the soft light resting on the tables. For the first time in a long while, the clinic no longer felt like a place defined only by silence and observation. Something else existed here, a strange, fragile life, but a real one nonetheless. And Madame Leclerc, already immersed in a new story, seemed determined to share every detail of it with her.